All right, guys, before we get started on today's lesson, are there any questions over the homework? What we're doing today is more factoring. We're going over some more factoring today. So when we look at this here, 8x squared minus 56x plus 48, when we factor these quadratics, the first thing we need to do is determine if there is a greatest common factor. If there is one, we need to factor it out. Is there a number that will go into 8, 56, and 48? 2 will. Is there anything bigger than 2? 4 will. Now the question is 8. Well, we know 8 will go into 8. But the question is, I think the second one was 56 divided by 8 is 7. 48 divided by 8 is 6. So it works out that the greatest common factor is 8. And when we factor out a greatest common factor, what we're really doing is dividing each of them by whatever that number is. So 8x squared divided by 8 would be x squared. Minus 56 divided by 8 would be 7. So have x. Plus 48 divided by 8 is 6. Questions on this so far? Now the next step, we would have our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Third step is find the sign. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and they match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, we do have plus, so they're going to be the same and match the sign of the middle term. So we'll have minus and minus. Any questions on this so far? Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. Well, factors of x squared are x and x. Since we don't have a number in front of it, it's just going to be x and x. Factors of 6. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 3. We'll plug those in. And then lastly, we will check. X times negative 3 is negative 3x. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 3x minus 2x is negative 5x. Is that the middle term we wanted? Well, the next thing we can do is switch the 2 and 3, which won't make any difference because the numbers in front of x are the exact same. Even if it wasn't just 1 and 1, if it was 2 and 2, 3 and 3, if they're the same, switching that other term is not going to change anything. So we can switch 2, 1, and 6. And if we check this here, x times negative 6 would be negative 6x. Negative 1 times x would be negative x, which gives us negative 7x. Is that the term or middle term we wanted? Yes? So the correct answer is this here. One thing I will say that you definitely do need to be careful of is making sure to include the greatest common factor. Because it is a part of the final answer. Because if it's excluded, if we leave it off, we're not actually getting back to this here as part of the final answer. We would actually only get back to there. So now, for this part here, for the homework, especially on these here, if there is a greatest common factor, it's not a big thing, it's a big part of it. Because I think there was a few that had it, but most of what we did yesterday didn't have it.
I was looking at this one.
Yep.
I didn't really think of that as the answer. I thought of this one as the answer.
No. Yeah, no, this over here, this is just our side work to make sure we got it right. But any other questions on this one here? Let's look at this one here, 14x squared plus 31x plus 15. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? No. So we move on to step 2, our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Takes care of steps 1 and 2. Step 3, if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Third term is positive, so the signs are the same and they match the sign of the middle term, which is plus. So we have plus and plus. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. Well, part of our first term is x squared, so we know we'll have x and x. Factors of 14. Mm-hmm. 15 is, I would always make sure to start off with 1 and 15 when I list factors. So I start there and then check 2, 3, 4, keep going up on that side until the other side's factors are smaller than what we have. So for 14, well, we know 14 and 1. 14 divided by 2 would be 7, so 2 and 7. 14 divided by 3 is 4. Well, the only number after that would be 4, but its other one is less than 4, so we're done. We don't have anything after that. Because once the factors meet each other or cross, we've found them all. So, with these factors of 14, which one do we want to try first? 2 and 7. We just need to pick a spot for them. I'm just going to pick them like this here. Factors of 15, which ones do we want to try? 1 and 15. Next thing we need to do is check. 2x times 15 is 30x. 1 times 7x is plus 7x. 30x plus 7x is 37x. Now I don't put the plus sign in front of the 30, but we know it is positive, so we don't necessarily need to put it there. Well, our next option is to switch to 15 and 1. So we'd have 15 here, 1 here. I'm going to do this all the way out, but I will point something out as we start this. 2x times 1 is 2x, positive 2x. 15 times 7x is plus 105x. And 2x plus 105x is 107x. Is that anywhere close? No, but also, as we're looking at this here, we need to get 30. 7 times 15 is probably going to be something a lot bigger than 30. Because when we did 2 and 7x and 1 and 7, we got really close to it. They're a little bit bigger. But even if we don't see that, plugging them in doesn't hurt. Because we check it, we see it doesn't work, so then we can try the next one. 3 and 5. Now before I go on to 1 and 14, I make sure I try every possible combination with 2 and 7 first. Since I picked those two, I'm going to try all the combinations of 15 before I move on. Does that make sense? Because that way we know for sure 2 and 7, if this doesn't work, then we can move on to 1 and 14 and know we haven't missed anything. 2x times 5 is 10x. 3 times 7x is plus 21x. And 10x plus 21x is that the correct middle term? That's it. Questions on this here? Now, interestingly enough, you will get better at these the more that you do them, and you'll be able to start picking out which factors are more likely to work and which order is probably going to work best as you start seeing more of them. Questions on these so far? Now, if we look at this one here, is there a greatest common factor? No. So 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Third term is positive or negative? Positive. So the signs will be the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is, so we'll have negative and negative. And we need to find the factors of 2x squared and 5. We'll have x and x. Factors of 2 are 1 and 2, so we just need to put a 2 in one of the spots. Yes? Factors of 5 are, so we need to figure out which side we want to put the 1 and which side to put the 5. One with the second. Then we can check. 2x times negative 1 is negative 2x. Negative 5 times x is negative 5x. And negative 2x minus 5x is negative 7x. Is that what we wanted? So we're done. So if we get it on the first try, we don't have to try any other combination because that's the one that works. Questions on this here? Any questions on these so far? We feel pretty comfortable with these for the most part. In that case, I'm going to skip those 2 and go to this one. Not because they're not important, but I think it might be helpful for y'all to get some time where I'm not leading the whole thing. And this one is kind of helpful. Now, looking at this one here, is there a greatest common factor between all 3 terms? Well, 6 and 12 do have a greatest common factor of 6, yes? But the middle term is 1. So there isn't one amongst all 3. So we don't have a greatest common factor. Now, the third term sign is negative, so the signs are, yeah, we skipped a few. So the signs are opposite. One of them is going to be positive, the other is going to be negative, plus and minus. Factors of the first term. So we'll have x and x. Now the factors of 6 are 2 and 3. I'm just going to pick 2 and 3 for this here. Now the factors of 12 are 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 4 and 3, 3 and 4. So we have these here, yes? Now, I pointed this out yesterday, that if there's not a greatest common factor in the original problem, neither of the sets of parentheses can have one. Because if there's 1 in one of the parentheses, we can factor it up front, which means there should have been 1 to start. Does that make sense? So I'm going to grab 2 and 6. So I wouldn't write this down, but I would just at least look at this. Could this work? Because we have 2x and 2, greatest common factor of 2. 3x and 6 has a greatest common factor of 3. Okay. Let's switch it. 3x minus 2 doesn't have a greatest common factor, does it?
Yeah.
How about 2x and 6?
Yeah.
So could that work? Because here, we have no greatest common factor. But do we have one here? Yeah, so does 6 and 2 work in this way? No. Well, that's actually told us one other thing. That 2 and 3 and 2 and 6, there's no way that that would work, no matter how we set it up. So that's 2 setups that we don't even have to try. They're gone. Let's look at 1 and 12. 2 and 1, is there a greatest common factor there? How about 3x and 12? There's a greatest common factor of 3. Let's switch it. Would this one work? Because 2x and 12 has a greatest common factor of 2. Well, the only other one in the list for 2 and 3 is this here. Would this one work? Because 2x and 4 is the greatest common factor of 2. 3x and 3 does. So, how about this one here? This one could work, yes? Out of 6, the 6 possible setups we had with 2 and 3 for 6, 5 of the 6 automatically did not work because there was a greatest common factor. We could have actually checked it, multiplied through, and none of them would have given us a middle term of x. But just because we know that if there's not a greatest common factor here, there can't be one in either one of these spots, we took 5 setups and eliminated them without even checking. That's why that's nice. Now, if we check this here, 2x times negative 4 is negative 8x. 3 times 3x is positive 9x. Negative 8x plus 9x is that the middle term we wanted? And that's it. Questions on this here? Now, if the greatest common factor, kind of what we walk through, isn't something that's immediately obvious, that's fine because the checking step will take care of that anyways. It just makes it a little bit easier, a little bit quicker. Questions on any of this here so far? Be ready for the next one. Looking at this one here, is there a greatest common factor? No. But this one does look a little different than any of our previous ones, yes? What is different about this one than the last few? The negative 4. The first term is negative on this one here, yes? Now, steps 2, 3, 2 and 3, this is really not affecting. Step 4, yes. Step 5, no. The reason this messes with step 4 is when we find the factors of this first term, we can't just find the factors of 4. We have to find the factors of negative 4. Now, the reason it doesn't, we don't have to do like on the last one, the factors of negative 12, is because step 3 took care of that, took care of the signs. But step 3 will not take care of the signs with negative 4 when it's in front of the x squared. So it might seem like there should be some big step that's going to take place that we have to do to fix this, and there is and there isn't. There isn't a number greatest common factor, but we're going to factor out a negative 1. I'm going to factor that negative out. We're going to divide everything by negative 1. If there is a greatest common factor, an actual number, we'll factor that number out. But if there is a negative in front of that term being squared, that x squared, we factor it out. Now that is still going to leave us the 4x squared, the 8x, and 5, because we're dividing each one of them by 1. 4, 8, and 5 are not going to change. They're still going to be 4, 8, and 5. But the negative 4, when I divide it by negative 1, is going to become positive. The negative 8 is going to become positive. And the positive 5 will become negative. Now that 4 is positive. So when we find the factors of the first and third term, we don't have to worry about it. So if the number in front of x squared is negative, we take that negative with it. If there had been a greatest common factor of 2 across all of them, we would have taken out negative 2. We want to make sure that first term's positive. Questions on this here? Now, if the number's already positive, we don't have to worry about it. But if it's negative, we just factor that negative out. And after that, everything else stays the exact same. The issues that it would cause are gone. Because now we can treat it the same way. 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. To find the sign, if the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. So here the signs would be opposite, positive and negative. Factors of the first and third term. Well, our 4x squared would give us x and x. Factors of 4 are 2 and 2. Which one do we want to try first, 1 and 4 or 2 and 2? And 4. I'll put 4 on the first one. Factors of 5 are, which one do we want to put first? And now we can check this here. 4x times negative 1 is negative 4x. 5 times x is plus 5x. And negative 4x plus 5x is x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. All right. We can flip the 5 and 1. Or 4x times negative 5 is negative 20x. 1 times x is plus x, which gives us negative 19x. Is that the middle term we wanted? Is there any other way we can write this with 4 and 1 with our x's? No. So we need to switch the 4 and 1 to 2 and 2. 2x times negative 5 is negative 10x. 1 times 2x is plus 2x. Negative 10x plus 2x is negative 8x. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. It was the original middle term, but we're looking for this one here because we need it to be positive. So we just need to switch the signs. Because this will now make it 10x minus 2x is 8x when we check it. And that's our final answer. So when we do this here, is there a big difference with that first term being negative? I mean, a little bit. We have to factor out a negative 1, yes? But once we factor that negative 1 out, everything else falls in line, yes? But that's it. Questions on this here? Negative 9x squared minus 3x plus 2. Is there a greatest common factor? Well, no. But we do have a negative first term. So to make that term positive, we're going to factor out a negative 1, which will make the 9x squared positive. It'll make the 3x positive. That is going to make the 2 negative. So I'll still have our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now we don't necessarily have to write the 1 itself out front. We can just write the negative. So we could have done that on the last one too. Now we need to look for our signs. Since the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. One is positive and one is negative. And we do need to find the factors of the first and third terms. One of the factors of the first term is going to be our x and x. Now we do need to find the factors of 9. 1 and 9, 3 and 3.
I need Hunter Inman to come to the office, please. Hunter Inman.
Which one do we want to try first? 1 and 9 or 3 and 3? Factors of 2 are 1 and 2. Now we can check this here. 9 times negative 2 is negative 18x. 1 times x is plus x, which gives us negative 17x. Well, that's not the middle term we want. Yes, I mean, we can switch it here, which would give us negative 9x plus 2x, which is negative 7x. It's closer than our first one, but not quite what we want. Now the next one we can try is 3 and 3. And check this here. 3x times negative 1 is negative 3x. 2 times 3x is plus 6x, which gives us a positive 3x. Is that what we wanted? Yes. And that's it. Because it's part of our answer. Because we didn't have to write the negative 1, as it's understood, the 1 is understood to be there. So we can just write it as negative parentheses. Yeah, because negative 1 parentheses is the same as just negative parentheses. That's a good question. Any other questions on this here? Okay. So we can do one more, and then I will give you the rest of the time to work on the assignment. Which one of these two do y'all want to look at?
This one. The one that
So 5, 6, and 1, there's not a greatest common factor number-wise. But since the first term is negative, we're going to factor negative 1 out, which will leave us with 5m squared minus 6m plus 1. So we'll still have the negative there. That's our part of our greatest common factor. Now we need to find the signs. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, the signs are opposite. Well, it's positive, so they're going to be the same and match the sign of the middle term, which would be negative and negative. Factors of the first term. We will have m and m. And unfortunately, they're not chocolate. The factors of 5 are 1 and 5. So we just need to make one of them a 5, and the other is just going to stay m. Third term is 1, and the factors of 1 are 1 and 1. Once we've got it set up, we're going to check this here. 5m times negative 1 is negative 5m. Negative 1 times m is negative m. 5m minus m is negative 6m. And that's it. Questions on any of this here? This here would be similar. We just factor out the negative and go from there. It'll be from the same sheet, yes. But instead of 3 through 10, it's 11 through 23 odd. 11 through 23 odd. So a total of 7 problems.